Start. Okay.
We're back into it.
Yeah, I'm trying to very carefully get over
Oh,
this.
I think you did good.
Okay, camera didn't move.
No, I think
All
that's
right. That was so nice of Patty to come in and say hi to us, and that your playground has got that awesome grant happening. Okay. So back to our objective. So did you come up with a number of children?
Yes. I want to do the. I want to do a 3 to 4.
Okay. 3 to 4 children. And was that selected by teacher observations? Teachers letting you know?
Yes, either by my observations or by teacher report. So I'll ask. So I'm like right now I'm going in knowing 3 kids that are currently in that room who will be attending over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Who have a hard time saying goodbye, letting mom go, some of those kinds of things.
Okay.
Who've kind of been identified already in my mind through observation and stuff. So
okay. All right. So we have who is involved, and
we have our specific small group.
We have why the learning objective is important, because you want to help children with transition difficulties for that daily routine, and then I think we need to talk about how often.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about this because this is interesting. I'm thinking this is my class. I have a kid who's having a difficult time. I'm thinking that I would want to scale it back. So, I'd want to be doing it more often and then scale it back. So I would think that probably every day for a week.
Okay.
I would want those identified children. And then...
And is that going to be that's attainable? I mean that's realistic. You could find some time in the day for every day for 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
With that, can we do a this might need to be kind of added in a little bit later, but when I'm saying 3 to 4 children, would it be possible if I could identify specific names, and then it would be whether they're there or not? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be these specific children.
Sure.
And then, so if 2 are there one day, then I can still do it with those 2.
Oh, sure.
And it's not like,
Oh, absolutely.
about the group size, but more about the children's names.
Okay.
And I'm just thinking there'll be probably 3 to 4 who will be identified as benefiting from this.
Okay, and we can
Kind
add
of
their
higher
names.
level. Yes, I identify them, and that'll probably be pretty easy for me to do after I've had my first week in there.
Okay.
So.
So realistically, when do you think you might be able to start this? After you mentioned after the modeling.
Yeah, so I would like to do it right after the modeling, because I think it's like if you're learning a new skill, you want to do it right. And so if I just jump in doing whatever I've been doing before, then I'm not going to do it with the fidelity of new skills that I'm learning.
So we could put beginning after modeling activity.
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Do we have to be specific though? Because that's why I had that was where the two weeks came in.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like within 2 weeks of the modeling activity. Or how about we could say within, well, I guess it would depend upon when our 2 working days after modeling activity. Let's say that.
Okay.
And 2 working days. So then if the modeling activity ends up being on a Friday, then obviously that's not going to work.
Modeling activity. All right, great.
Working days after modeling activity.
Okay, so shall we write this out so that we have it very specific. Rachel will read a scripted story. I'll put comma and we'll put the name of the story when we know it.
Now we don't need to put about the morning transition from home to school anymore, right? Because that will be replaced by a title. I go to school.
Scripted story.
Couldn't that work?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll read the scripted story. I go to school in a small group.
Because that's going to be about the transition from home to school.
And it's a specific title, so we know that it will.
2, and then names of children.
Names of 3 to 4 children. Once a day for a week.
Do you know what time of the day it would be?
It would be...
I don't know that we need to have the specific time.
I would need it to just be a between...
Once daily.
It would have to be like between 8 and 12 in the morning. I don't know what it'll be in the morning, but we have different things going on different days, and I'm hoping I'll be able to do it every day before breakfast, but if nobody's there, I'm going to have to wait till they come a little bit later. No.
How about once each morning? Once each morning?
Once each morning would be fine, because I would do it before lunch and nap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Each morning. For 1 week, beginning 2
Within
days.
2 working days after modeling activity.
Okay, working. 2 working days after modeling activity.
In order to help children with transition difficulties for this daily routine.
Okay. Is there anything else we have forgotten?
Measurable, how many? Yep. To what degree? The whole story.
Okay.
How will I know when it is accomplished? I never know how to answer those things. It's like, well, when I say the end, it's been done.
Well, one of the things you could do is have a checklist, a daily checklist that you just write in maybe the names of the children who you read the story to.
Well, that's a good idea because they might not be all there for every day. That's a good idea.
A checklist or a calendar or a spreadsheet.
I like the idea of having almost like the little chore chart, except it'll have names and I can do a little check by what day they were there.
Okay. Using check chart, did you say? When you're going to create?
Rachel will use a...
And that can go on our action plan.
I'll call it a spreadsheet because that's essentially what those things are.
When we get to the rubric, I'm still working on this professional development plan. So we got one more thing to do on this before we move that objective to our skill set rubric. Okay, so I think we have, and how do you know when this objective is met?
And so that will be Rachel will use a spreadsheet to check off each child's name who was present after each reading.
Okay. And then of course you have your skill set rubric that will also be met at the end of the activity. Or, I'm sorry, by live coaching. Okay, so now, can we go ahead and move on then to what's next on the agenda?
Yes,
Is
yes,
the
yes.
implementation plan. So we're still on professional development, and the implementation plan is on the side.
Is this the same as this grade book, or is it something different?
No, it's our professional development plan that has our dates, the dates of when we do everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get lost in all the terms.
Because at some point we talked about the strengths associated with this objective. You mentioned mini trainings that you've had in the past on the scripted stories. And I also included, because you also talked about having the trainings this year in Pyramid Plus. Any others? Any other strengths you have in this, for this particular objective?
Those are the things that just really pop out.
Okay. And then areas for improvement, you mentioned needing samples of scripted stories to review, which we'll do in a little bit. And then on the last page here, we have our implementation plan. So this is kind of setting you up for how you're going to implement this in the future. Once you've got the strategy, you've got it down, you're able to use it, say, beginning of next year or in the fall. What, who, what, when, and the resources you'll need. And this is just really fill in the blanks.
Okay, so this
But I
is
know it
using
may take you a minute to think about
using
how
the
you wanna-
completed skill
Mhm.
in the classroom.
Right.
Okay, well, it would be Rachel and Ivy as my assistant. And the what would be identifying children with identifying children who might benefit from the scripted story, the specific scripted story.
Okay.
And the when would be by the end of our first 3 days of school, because we're starting on a Tuesday. So our first week's going to be 3 days. So at the end of that week, it's who needs this for next week?
Okay, so starting the second week of
Yes.
school.
Well, we would be identifying children the first week.
Oh, right.
By the
As
end
an
of
action.
the first week, I'm trying to think of how do I say that. By end of the first week of
By
school.
end of first week, yes. Thank you for getting me back on track. And resources to find out.
Now for these resources, is this essentially just saying how are Ivy and I going to identify the children? Okay, so we'll be doing that by observation.
Does your home
and
visit
parent
happen
report.
before then?
It does, yes.
I wonder if that's one of the questions you want to put into that. You know how you were talking about 1 to 3 questions? I think they were the first 3 questions, and I can't remember if the third question is the difficult time of the day. You know,
It's
those-
not, but I don't know that. I think by the time that we're doing home visits, some parents might know their kids are going to have a difficult time, but most parents don't know till the first day.
Good point.
We have a lot who've not ever, this is their first school experience.
That's a good point.
So they don't know what it's going to
Yeah.
be like.
Okay.
But we'll definitely know that first week.
Okay.
So observation and parent report, and that will be by just talking to parents at pick up and drop off. And actually, you know what, thinking of that, we would probably need to use, I'm going to say, I should just put bus driver, which I'm assuming is going to be Rosa, but use bus driver as resource.
Ooh,
Because
good
she's
idea.
going to be picking up kids on the bus, and we're not going to see what's happening from them, from the parent getting them onto the bus, and we'll need to know that with
That's a
her.
really good idea. Okay. Okay. Are we ready for the next action?
Mm-hmm. So then the next one will be Rachel. And the what would be to read the scripted story. And boy, I really have a hard time putting a number on that because I don't know how much they're going to need it. Now it's like, are they really going to need it every day for a week? You don't know that until you're there. But I would be reading the scripted story as needed to small groups of 3 to 4 children. So if I had more than 4 children, I would probably try to split them up into 2 different groups to try to make it a little bit more personal.
Okay.
So I could have some personal touch with them and stuff as I'm reading through it and stuff. I think that would be important.
Do you want to try to read every day for 1 week to start and then see how it goes?
Yeah, I mean, I could say that, but I mean, I know that that's one of those things that
Well, sure. Any of this
you
can
don't
change.
know until
Yeah, any of this can change when you
Until you're
have
there.
more information.
I'll say each morning for 1 week.
Okay, and
When would be second plus week of school? Because I
mornings.
can't imagine that after after doing it every day for 1 week, it's like, I'm not ever going to make this book again, you know? It's like, let's pull that out once next week and see if they're looking at it themselves in free time or anything, you know? And
Right.
maybe we're still having issues. Let's jump in and do that again in week 3. And the
Okay.
resource would just be the scripted story. A copy of the scripted story. Insert title there.
Okay. Anything else you want to add on there?
I think that would be it.
Okay, so then this wonderful objective will be then also put on the skill set rubric. And let me just check my notes to see where I am here. Okay, so we tightened up the practice-based learning objective. We came up with an implementation plan for the strategy. And now we can go ahead and move on to coaching on topic. And remember that the purpose of the coaching on topic activity is to support evidence-based content from the Pyramid Plus approach, from the Pyramid Plus approach training curriculum that's relevant to the practice-based learning objective. Does that still make sense?
I'm wading through the lingo. I get it.
Okay.
We want to teach you to use really reliable, proven resources based upon what you're hoping to learn.
and so it's like a mini training and using the resources to as part of the training. So you have better understanding about scripted stories. And so So we're going to review the practice-based learning objective, and we just came up with it. So do you mind reading it aloud?
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, Rachel will read title of the scripted story, 2 names of 3 to 4 children within 2 working days after the modeling activity. Oh, I don't have on each morning here. So let me start over. Rachel will read name of the scripted story each morning for a week. 2 names of 3 to 4 children within 2 working days after the modeling activity in order to help children with transition difficulties for this daily routine. Rachel will use a spreadsheet to check off each child's name who was present after each reading. And then, as you mentioned, we have the skill set rubric.
Okay. So we have that in front of us. So we're reminded again that the strategy to be taught and this practice to be learned leads to practice-based learning objective on the skill set rubric. Also, it is a strategy on the next level up on the pyramid model, which includes targeted social emotional supports, and which done systematically can have preventive and remedial effects. And so I have to tell you, when I think of preventive, my son Kevin Kephart, you remember Kevin?
He was very active and climbed on everything.
He did, and that is exactly why I'm telling you this story, because when I was doing family child care for the Coast Guard, in Coast Guard housing, I did not know that Kevin was going to have such a problem going from play to nap. And he wanted to climb all over the place. The couch, because we're in the living room where all the napping mats are. And it was such a big ordeal every single day to try to get him on his mat. I would try to figure out how to put him between the wall and me, separate the rest of the kids and everything. And, had I had a scripted story like this, and he loves to read, I think it really would have prevented a lot of stress. Yep. So, so I see the importance in this. So what I did was, in your resources here, I've got from the Pyramid Plus training that we both took. If you look on the 3rd slide here, it just goes over some important points about using scripted or social stories. That's used. Also, social stories is used in place of scripted stories. And specifically describing a situation from the child's point of view. And the idea behind the scripted story or social story is that the child will better understand and have consistent reminders of expectations in the target situation. And there's a few more slides on them, like when do you use one? How do you create one? And how do you use the story? So we know that it definitely applied to Axel specifically, which you learned through the parent interview during Circuit 1, but you recognize that there may be other children that are in the same situation. And I like how you would include some personal information about the child to make the story his or her own, like those pictures and maybe specific things that happen during their morning. Which reminds me, every child is going to have probably a different routine at home.
They definitely will.
Because different people are in their lives at home too. Do you have any questions about any of that?
Mm-mm.
Any of those facts and tips? Make sense?
Yes, yes it does.
And then there are more resources on the Supple site and building blocks.
And I did look at those two that you sent me, that I go to preschool and I go to preschool on the bus. And I did look at those.
Okay, and so I did bring those too. I brought copies of those. That's in your stack there.
Awesome.
The only thing about the I go to preschool is I think it starts with getting into a car seat. So depending on what your needs are or what the child's needs are, writing your own might make more sense so that you can include some of the things that happen at the house. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm thinking that to keep it broad yet specific, that I think what I would want to do is have the at-home thing being general and asking questions. So that's why I've got my small group.
Okay.
So it's saying, when I get up, the first thing I do in the morning is, or the first thing that happens every morning is I wake up and get out of bed. And then it would lead to I have to get ready for school. What do you do to get ready for school? So then I can ask them different things that they have to do to get ready to school.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like, people can get to schools in different ways. Some people ride the bus, some people go in a car, some people walk. How do you get to school? And then it will be they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's sometimes it's scary for me when I come to school. Sometimes I'm sad and want to stay home with my mom. You know, those kinds of things. And that's when I'm getting into the actual scripted story, because now it's okay, let's talk about the feelings and what you can do to overcome those feelings and what you're doing when you come here, who's helping support you in that, those kinds of things.
Okay, and so to go along with that, well, the one sample, my day at school, and then I go to preschool. There's a car version of that as well. And then I also included a scripted stories for social situations tip sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So this really gives you step-by-step instruction on how to develop one. And what I noticed in all of these is it's in the first person. I like to run. I can run. So I thought this would help too. You think this will be helpful?
Yeah.
And
Just
for
even being able to
developers?
look at this, especially wording. I realized the first time I ever tried to do a scripted story that that it was challenging for me to try to find a precise, specific word. You know, the precise, specific sentence, so it's not this long thing, but just
Right.
how can I say all of that in one simple, easy to understand sentence.
So yeah, it takes a lot of wordsmithing to get it down
Mm-hmm.
to that, doesn't it? Okay, so, and there are even in our toolkits, and I think you have one at this center, a toolkit with lots of resources like the home kit, something that the parents can take home to do.
Yeah, that toolkit from Virginia Kyle when we were doing those, yes.
That's where I got a lot of this.
Yes,
Which
I know
comes-
exactly where that is.
Yeah, so this comes from Cephal or any of those research-based resources. And so how might the strategy be individualized for each child? Thinking about children you have children from different cultures or special needs.
Well, I think as I was just saying, to make it kind of universal and specific at the same time, to say things like there's lots of different ways. This is how I get to school. and then ask them. So they're sharing their own experience. To be able to do that, I'm trying to think. I would like to steer away from clip art and use real photos, but I'm not sure if that's going to be possible 100% without having the scripted story yet. But I will have it written specifically for the routines of going into X room in the morning, because that's where we all are now, and that's what we're going to be doing for the next 3 months. So it will be specific to that.
So yeah, and so what about any language changes because of language or behavior challenges? Which those two can be very different, or they can be similar.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who, we do have a couple ESLs who are in that room, but they are so proficient with English and their parents are so proficient with English that I don't think they have to have a Spanish version.
Okay. But would you be able to create one if you did need that?
Yeah. In the long term, I would need to do one for Emily's room, my room, and X room, because our children are experiencing all of that. For a long-term perfect world, I would need one for the morning transition and transitioning from classroom to classroom, because we do have some kids who do that, and we're really, really working hard at minimizing that as much as possible.
And those would be other objectives. It would be
I'm just
a similar
thinking,
strategy.
Perfect world. This is what I need to do for transition.
Yeah.
If it's.
And so I'm just specifically talking about this particular story. If there are any changes that would need to happen because of, just to individualize.
If I had a child with autism or something, then I would probably try to add in little Velcro pictures that they could put on. If they weren't able to communicate to me, I go on the bus. Then I would have a picture of walking, car, or a bus, and they could move with Velcro.
Okay.
So they could still have a way to talk to me,
Right.
Have a kind of random pictures of brushing teeth or eating breakfast or getting dressed, so they can move the things that they're doing. So it would be a way for them to communicate some of those kinds of things.
Yeah, because once again, there's value and importance of implementing the evidence-based inclusion practices so that all children can participate and access instruction. So that's good. And did you have any questions about any of those materials that I gave you? Okay. Great.
Yeah, I did look at these when you sent them on the email.
And again, your strengths are in that you've had the training, you've had a lot of experience in scripted stories. Hopefully, there's some information that just reminds you of something you'd forgotten or extra tips.
Well, and I always find that when I'm looking at things like that, I always find things I'm like, oh, I really like that, and oh, I really don't like that. So it's always helping me hone in a little bit more what I think is really going to work for me, getting ideas of what I like and getting ideas of what you don't like, and I think all of those really, I think it's just as important to see what you don't like as what you like.
Okay.
To be able to figure out what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, the more information you have, the better plan you can make. Right? All right, so we'll talk about next steps. After you complete the coaching on topic evaluation, which we get to do that again. So I'll give that to you right now. So after
I have it right here.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
I was like, I just
had
saw it
extra
at the bottom
copy.
of my thing.
So after you do the evaluation, we'll complete the skill set rubric for the objective. That shouldn't take us very long. We already have the dates set for the rest of the circuit modeling, behavior rehearsal, coaching, and peer-to-peer. However, we've had some changes in dates, and so with that said, we can either reschedule those dates at the end today, or we can do it by email. Either way.
Okay, well, you know, what makes sense to me right now is to just push them all back one, since we already have the time set.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking too. But can we do that at the very end though?
Yes.
Okay, and I won't forget. So I'm going to give you some time to do. I'm going to give you time to do the coaching on topic eval. And I don't think I need to videotape this whole eval. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off.
Okay.